Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so yeah, good afternoon. It's great to see you all here. Indeed, it was a very great session, Sumit. It's quite a helpful one. Allow me to just open my presentation. So we'll be discussing about instructional design. Uh, a quick introduction. My full name is Amol Anantakidkar. I'm an electrical engineer. I am a technical writer and then coupled with instructional designer. I do have total 13 years of experience. For first 10 years, I have worked in construction project management, and later on I shifted to technical writing and coupled with instructional designing. Currently, I'm working with a company called Tech Talks, and I'm working for two clients. One is Icertis, and second is Eicher. Eicher is into truck manufacturing services. So the two completely different domains coming together. Uh, okay, so what we will cover today, we'll see and touch upon instructional designing. What exactly is that? Why is there is presence of instructional designing, and where exactly it is implemented, and then we will see what are the different learning stages, how people learn. We will also see what are the different learning styles, and we will see learning theories, and then we will conclude. uh, Getting into the basics, what exactly is instructional designing? It is the creation of learning experiences and contents in a manner that it results in acquisition and application of knowledge and skills. So let's try and break that into two parts. What exactly is happening is creation of learning experiences, and why it is done, so that it results into acquisition and application of what, of knowledge and skills. So there could be another way of telling it, as it is design, develop, and deliver effective solutions to support the acquisition and support the acquisition of knowledge and skills. So let's try and get some history about instructional designing. During 1940s, somewhere during the starting of the World War, the psychologists and educators, they were actually recruited by the military people to develop the training materials for military services. Their agenda was to hire the military people. Okay, and then they were also asked to come up with some evaluation, evaluating materials. The major contributors for this were he was the main contributor, and then he took some help of someone called John Flanagan. This was the time when sort of a formal structure of instructional designing happened, and it was established in that way. So we are all aware about from somewhere from 1940s to 1990, how the transition took place, how the technology uh, changes took, and then from 1995 onwards 2000, we all have witnessed a drastical change that happened in technology. Most of us have witnessed that. However, the one thing remains very clear and very common. Most of us is that learning is something which is indispensable part, irrespective of your domain, irrespective of what your current position is. I strongly feel that learning is something which just simply cannot be avoided. So learning and acquiring new knowledge and skills is it's a requirement that needs to be fulfilled by everyone. Here, I mean everyone, literally, I mean everyone. It includes adults and kids as well. So, creating such learning experiences, and that will help in engaging customers, engaging the learners, and to bring that out the effectiveness is where the root presence of instructional designing is. So acquiring the new knowledge, acquiring the new skills is something a universal requirement. You cannot just restrict that to one particular area. I think instructional designing is spread across the globe to fulfill these sort of requirements. To best of my understanding and what I have experienced and what I have seen is that it has a strong presence in IT, number one, in banking sector, and then it is there somewhat in automobile and in pharma sector. It is heavily observed in the education sector as well, in order to deliver the educational materials. Depending upon the audience needs and depending upon the learning goals, the instructional design, they can form a good list of deliverables. The recent trend is the self-paced e-learning courses. I guess it is there from last 10 or 12 years, and then instructor-led trainings, then entire course curriculum, anything and everything related to training, learning and training department comes under instructional designing. Also, there is a good sort of a support required for marketing teams, and then for branding teams, there is a lot of instructional designing activities. I would like to add that technical writing and instructional designing are clearly two different areas. However, their borders are defined. However, depending upon the project requirements, these two areas can come together very closely, and the border can can be diluted because many of the roles, many responsibilities are easily transferable. And I definitely get that feel when I get into instructional designing while doing technical writing. Let's move ahead with the proximity roles, what I have seen near the instructional designing. Uh, I can say that this is the range of the roles that do exist, and if they have a strong motivation or some tiltation towards training, but then they are into a different roles, be it a developer or a teacher, and then a graphic designer, fresher, and then someone like me, maybe a technical writer, can uh, can convert into instructional designing. That is a very added advantage because most of the skills you might have already in common. A typical question would be, can any educator become an instructional designer, or a technical writer can easily become instructional designer? I think no, the answer is no. Only if you have that tiltation, or if you get those opportunities, then this transformation makes a sense to your own career and to the organizations. Yes, graphic designer, every graphic designer cannot convert themselves into the ID, because it again depends on personality, as very clearly mentioned by Sumedh in the last session, that what skills you have and what sort of a ladder you want to develop. Are you really prepared? And it depends on your inner motivation, and that will define you to take up the new roles. Right. That's how exactly learning happens, and then we will see what are the different learning stages, different styles, and different learning patterns. Second, I consider instructional designing as a very good line that is there in between how people learn and how to use the technology to get them learn. So once we understand the first part, how exactly learning happens, then it would be much more comfortable to use that technology. Okay, so it is not necessary to use each and everything in the deliverable. So the device medium could be as simple as internet, or it could be as complex as a tablet or an iPad for that matter. So whenever we learn something, we want to take it to such an extent that it becomes a kind of cakewalk, or what we say as a routine. So it clearly means that it is going to bring out a permanent change in our behavior. So it could be related to a task, it could be related to any tool, or it could be related to the technical writing. So whatever we run, it is going to either bring out a permanent change, upgradation to a level or modification to our half clear concepts. So that is for sure. Let's try and jump on the different stages of learning. Uh, there are four major different phases or quadrants we can see the stages of learning covers. First is the unconscious incompetence. Second is conscious incompetence, and then it's conscious competence, and lastly unconscious incompetence. So let's try and understand all this. What exactly is this? Uh, I would like to quote an example of let's say driving a car. So when we first wanted to drive a car, we had no clue how exactly it functions, and then we had no idea what exactly is engine, where is the clutch, where is that accelerator, where is the brakes, and how exactly it functions. So here we are unconscious and we are also incompetent. So we basically don't know what we don't know in that way. So later on, we somehow figured out with some discussions with our friends or close ones how what exactly is that. We started observing how that fellow is doing. Later on, we had few discussions, and then we got little curious. And these are the early stages, and at least we get to know that yes, this is how the left leg is put on the clutch, and this is how you convert and push the gear into the first way, and this is how slowly the starts going out. Like if you can visualize this, this is the first phase of realization, wherein we come to this phase where we are conscious, but are we competent? Are we really competent? No, the answer is still no. Now here we are only aware of that skill, but we are not proficient enough. After that, we start practicing. So the more and more we practice, the more we understand. We then start doing some trial and errors, although we have uh, uh, little bit of a lack of confidence. We do that with somebody's presence. We start doing that. Then there comes a conversion wherein we convert ourselves with the repetition and repeated practice. We become conscious, and now somewhat we are competent. Here now you are able to use that skill, but we are putting some with proper efforts. With this, again, comes as a lot of practice, and maybe after a few months, maybe after a few weeks, in some cases we reach to a state where it becomes literally an habit for us, and we now no longer we have to think of this. We reach to a stage where we are into unconscious competence. So just performing the skill, it we what is that is called as autopilot mode. We go into that autopilot mode. We don't have to think. It just starts automatically. Let's take one more example. So let's say there is an emergency in your home, back at home, and at 1 a.m. Midnight, and then you call up a medical store in charge, who is your friend, and he would be in a great sleep, sound sleep. And for us, the meaning is he's unconscious, and something bad happens. There are some uh, un, unrealistic things happening, and then let's say the father is not well, he suddenly goes down, and then we can see there are 3 tablets. We don't know exactly which tablet is for what, and we call him, and the response, the kind of response that he will give is a damn fast. At that moment he is unconscious, however he is highly competent. So so that means that he will be, at that moment he will be literally faster than the Google search. So any the reason for discussing all this is because objective of any training, objective of any sort of a training, is to make the learner reach out to this situation. So he might go into unconsciousness, and he is competent enough to perform the tasks. Let's go a little deep into something called as a cone of learning. Uh, the left hand side represents the tendency to remember something. I hope the diagram itself is self-explanatory, and the right side represents the nature of involvement. So what we read, only 10% of the chances are that we remember what exactly we read. So this is in a reference to 2 weeks. So this is, you can, I mean, you can literally guess what exactly are the reasons why we tend to lose the information. 20% of the things we remember what we hear, and then as you move down from top to bottom, at this stage there is a visual receiving happening. So 50% of the things what we hear and we see is remembering. Let's move down. What we say, when there is an active participation, it could be the participations in discussions, giving a talk on someone, it could be a group discussion like that. Then there comes a zone of active participation, active learning gets started. So the percentage goes literally up to 70% of what we say. When we move down, it almost becomes 90% of what we actually do, what we say and do. So this typically involves, it could be a dramatic presentation, simulating the real experiences, doing the real things. I think from technical writing perspective, we can take that as a context and correlate all this information. When, let's say, there is a complex feature coming out and we are asked to do the complete writing part. So what are the different activities that we do? We are all aware of that. We need not go into that. So we all participate in discussions. In IT world, they call it as scrums, giving a talk. We also attend this simulating the real experiences. We get those environments from developers or testers. We actually perform what is happening. By doing this, we start realizing that feature, so that it becomes very clear, very easy for us to actually go and write that feature. If we only read about it, if we only hear, and if we only see somebody else is performing, then we will be able to write it, but then the understanding part would be very less out here. Is this uh, the cone of learning says? Again, the cone of learning would be taken and can be extended to such a level that it could be a cone of experience as well. So in this part, from the first step to this phase, when there is only visual receiving is considered, this is a passive learning. So whenever any learner is passive, the learning part is very limited and restricted. The moment the learner gets converted into the active phase, there is a lot of chances. There is a high chances that the tendency to remember will go on increasing. So the understanding becomes very simple and very easy. And I think in 1946, this cone of learning was introduced by Edgar Dalley. uh, so I guess for those people who have done a very sort of average job, or maybe not great job in schools, they can correlate this and they can say that yes, I only was introduced in the reading part and I only heard some. So that could be the main reason. Uh, I think the learning experiences are more effective when the learners are active. So the agenda, the objective of all instructional designing is to deliver and create those learning experiences. So learner always needs to be in this zone. Even we can correlate this to maybe learning any tool for that matter. Okay. With this, there are some learning theories. Really, there are three core learning theories. However, people do say that there are a lot of stuff more out there, but then it's always good to stick to the basics. So there are three theories which talks about the learning part. The first is behaviorism, wherein the mind is more of a black box. Only input and output is what matters. Now there is a system of reward and then there is a system of punishment as such. We can correlate this when we use these theories while learning and helping out our kids. Whenever there is a kind of a reward, it could be a chocolate or a toy, then there is a certain motivation that comes out, and then it's totally based on the behavior itself. So the other examples could be online quizzes. it can it straight away comes into the behaviorism part. uh, Next one is cognitivism, wherein the learner is exactly opposite to the behaviorism. Learner is active now. Learner is not anymore passive. What it means is mind here. The mind is like a computer. So it's the new information is coded in. It is structured to fit in with the existing information. So some of the examples in cognitivism could be rehearsals or doing the repetitions, wherein in the first repetition you have realized few things. You take the same script and you do it again, and you start realizing that there are different angles, different dimensions involved. You start thinking on those and you grow. So the self thinking factor is very high. So uh, in terms of principles, the cognitivism goes exactly opposite to the behaviorism. uh, and then comes something called as constructivism. Again, here learner is very active. Constructivism is it's a world where people do construct their own knowledge from their individual experiences. Okay, and they develop their own understanding. Here, each mind constructs its own unique realities. Now, for that matter, the example for constructivism could be group discussions. So, from group discussions, you get your own perspective and you learn from that, and you just move ahead. So, uh, learning theories, we can say, yes, to summarize, behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism are the three core theories. There are a lot more theories out there, but it would be too much of a deep dive. It would become difficult to focus more on the theoretical part. The one thing is that what I have realized, and I am realizing in my current projects too, is that so for one particular project, there is no one single theory that is suited. There has to be some mix and match and a hybrid combination. So selection of the learning theory really depends on what the learner needs. What are the requirements? As we do the audience analysis in both the cases, it really depends on what exactly is the project, what we want to deliver. Uh, in my own projects where I work for a client called iCertis, and also for the iSure, I in both the cases I have used this cognitivism and constructivism a lot. Many a times I have used this unconsciously, but when I realized it helped me a lot, and I took a deep dive in audience analysis, and that helped me. There's a one task of delivering 70 minutes of video in a time span of 1 month. There was no background. The subject matter expert was very rarely available. But these learning theories and the principles, actually, what they tell about how the learner learns, that helps in developing that sort of an understanding. So even the partial presence of subject matter expert becomes sufficient enough. Uh, let's let's also try and touch upon the learning styles. We all experience the world in our own unique ways. Some learn the best when they are into groups, while some learn when they are alone. Uh, and then some are very best in reading the books and they gain a lot of knowledge and understanding, while some are very good in watching only videos. They just hate the uh, books and all this reading stuff. On a very broad level, there are four learning styles as such. First is the visual, second comes the auditory, then there is a kinesthetic, and the one in the corner is read and write. So these are the four major categories, wherein let's say the first one, as the name clearly suggests, visual ones. These are the individuals, they prefer to see all things in the visual. Their tendency to gain the information, gain the understanding, is based on all those visual effects. So mainly guys from maybe graphic designers, or even people who believes in charts, they believe in pictures and maps. They gain the best out of it. They don't read the instructions. They read it, but then they take most from giving the emphasis on these visuals. Then there comes a category called auditory. These are the ones they prefer to listen. they don't believe, or they comparatively there is a less belief on the other things, so they keep listening. They do listen, and their listening is highly effective. They can catch you what you are saying. They will screw you if you are telling something wrong, or if you are trying to manipulate something. They will just grab you. These are very super cool auditory people. Then comes a category of kinesthetic. So as the word suggests, kinesthetic, they learn by doing something. They don't believe in other things, or we can say they comparatively there is a less focus on visuals and auditory. They basically learn by doing it. They just prefer the hands-on experience. So if you ask such people, the kinesthetic guys, to sit in a lecture for 3 hours, and if you just bombard some heavy information, a lot of technical stuff, then these will be the guys who will get most bored. They will start moving their legs. They will bring out their mobiles out. They'll see their WhatsApp, what is coming. They will see their inbox, and though they will be physically present, there will be something here, something here, somewhere else. Then they will take a lot of breaks. They will go to washrooms. They will come back. So there will be a certain kind of a disconnection if you actually don't involve them. Then there comes the four category, read and write. Again, as the name suggests, these are the individuals who prefer, to read and write. The emphasis is more about writing, or they believe in reading. So whenever they want to go out, they will open internet, they will do Google search, and they will read out the information. They will try their own ways. However, it would be the emphasis would be more on this reading and writing stuff. They will come back, they will write it down, they will maybe share in the blogs, and they will inform the people in these ways. That comes the learning styles. However, I do see that it is not that easy to clearly make a crystal clear difference between these two criterias. What we can say is a typical visual learner will have a more emphasis on visuals and a little less emphasis on the others. So it is not like that he will be very blind on listening something, a visual guy, or it is not like the auditory one will never ever read it, but the emphasis is little less in that manner. This we can jump to the conclusions part. Oh yes, there is one quiz at the end. Anyway, which we will check the key points here. The objective of instructional designing is delivering the quality learning experiences, and by understanding the different aspects of learning in detail. So here we can better implement effective learning at our workplace, for our client, and even for our growth. So I would like to repeat this. It is by understanding the different aspects of learning in details, we can better implement this learning at our workplace, for our clients, and even for our own growth. So I want to emphasize on the last part, even for our growth. So it is equally important to understand. I can say let's try and have a quick quiz on this. I hope it is good to hit on. These are is a question you can one disclaimer: there is no one answer for this. Even there is, it's not about having a right answer or a wrong answer. It is just a matter of choice. However, identification of this and realizing these things will obviously help to understand what exactly is your learning style, your learning pattern. So I want to assemble a newly purchased wooden table that came in parts, and I would learn it best from A, watch a video, B, read instruction manual, and C, take the advice. So either you can put it in the chat box, or even you can just visualize in your head, and it will help for self analysis. Then to remember a phone number, there are different small strategies. A, read loud several times, or B could be chunk the information in bits and pieces, or note it down. So all these are very minute observations that I have seen, and I really feel that this all helps in analyzing how you chunk the information. uh, from technical writing perspective, it's a very great part to touch upon. So my tendency is to break that number down into some digits and remember. So it's not the only way. There are many other ways too. And then it is easier for me to remember faces or names or events. So based on your own pattern, you can just recollect what had happened in last 6 months or 1 year, and what exactly you remember after the interactions. Do you remember the names? Do you remember the events, or do you literally remember the faces? That will help you to make a lot of self assessments. And then one question, when troubleshooting anything on computer, there are certain preferred methods. So I prefer to what? A, read online help. B, talk with some colleagues. And C, it could be trial and error. So again, you visualize this, what exactly you do. Be very honest and get the answers, and you will find that there might be a similar pattern what you do. You can take any similar question and you can ask yourself. It could be troubleshooting, may not be on computer, but troubleshooting anywhere else. And then you can slowly understand that yes, there is a certain pattern that is going to define my learning style. So once I understand what exactly is my learning style, then the main objective lies is how to learn and then what to learn. So for that, we really need to, I strongly feel that these are the things maybe that this all needs to be taught in 10th or 12th. It's somewhere in the start of the engineering, but somehow that is kind of a gap. Then for relaxation, I prefer what? A, reading a book. B, listening to the music. And C is physical workout. So for relaxation, what could be your way of doing it? Again, if you correlate all this, and you can take one more example of your own. Based on this, you'll be able to realize that yes, there are certain similarities, and then there is a good combination that you can see, you figure out, and once you figure out, you take a deep dive into that. With this, I would say thanks a lot for attend this thing session. All I have is this.
If anybody has the questions, they can post in the chat and we can take that up. Amol, you're on mute. So we have a question from Anuradha. She says, what tools do we use for ID? Amol, you are on mute, I think.
Sorry. Yeah. So what I have seen is typically we use Adobe Captivate. Then there are other tools. iSpring is the one. There is one called Articulate Storyline, and then there is Camtasia. Camtasia is a very nice one. By the way, Adobe Captivate is the one which I am using it currently. I am a certified Adobe professional. That helps me a lot in digging out a lot into instructional designing as well. So these are the 4 or 5 major tools. I hope that is.
Okay, so we have one more from Anuradha. Can we use Final Cut Pro as well for ID since it is a video editing tool?
Yes, the answer could be yes, depending upon exactly what are. But if see, let's see, if you want to deliver something in that way, the way the product was, then certainly yes, yes. In Yeah, I would like to add one thing. It is not like the Final Cut Pro. It could be a combination of any other tool as well. I mean, really, after a certain limit in the deliverables of instructional designing, I don't see a client anywhere coming up and suggesting that you should use this tool or that tool. It's totally up to us being a service provider. Uh, I don't see any restriction from that side. If there are limitations, then we can definitely take that as recommendations and can take that ahead.
So the next question is, how do you create storyboards?
Oh yes. How do you create storyboards? Yes, it would be a very long discussion. There, what I can say you is that there is no any one particular way of creating a storyboard. What 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 exactly? What important thing is how do you create it? There is no any template. If somebody comes to you and says this is the template and you have to literally follow it mechanically, then I can challenge it. That is not the only way. There are certain steps. If you have seen similar to the technical writing, again there are certain steps involved wherein as we undergo documentation development life cycle. Similarly, there is a process which deals with the creation of the videos, or it could be the creation of the entire storyboard. So it's would be very hard to answer it in two lines. There are different principles. The principles that we have seen here are the ones which helps to create a storyboard. Do you want to literally introduce some characters, or do you want to make it a very realistic way, or do you want to present that in the video format, or maybe it could be a scenario based learning. There are different ways to tackle that out. Later on, if you want, I have some a template which might help you to better understand on how to create the storyboards. People unfortunately, I would say, get scared of creating storyboards. I mean, there is not a very rocket science such as. Even a simple Excel sheet could be sufficient enough. I hope that answers.
We have one more question. The question is, can you share any resources to create scripts?
uh, right now it is a little tough, but then later on, if there is some email exchanges possible, I can share that.
So maybe the person can get in touch with you, Amol, right?
Yes, that is possible. Yeah.
Hope that answers the question. We have one from Sumit. He says, any apps where he can create scripts to audio. I think he
Uh,
means text to audio. Yeah, any scripting to audio file basically.
okay. Yes. There are some good references out there. I can again. I think. Let me recollect that. So basically, in my case, there is a team of graphic designing and animations all together. It's a separate team. So that particular task is mainly related to them. I will get on this if that is okay.
One such
There are
site,
3 to 4 free apps. Yeah.
yeah, there is one such site, text to speech.com.
Ye-
So
I know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he can actually input the text and we can have the audio file downloaded. So these things are freely available online, but I think there's
Yes.
certain word limit in that for the subscription, and there are many subscription packages available on the site as well. So yeah, uh, Sumit, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I guess there are no more questions.